What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. As always, I am your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsbeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm wiped out.
Yeah, it's been a long day for both of us, but nonetheless, Stu, you always amaze me with what you've run on Energy Newsbeat. We have an excellent menu lined up. First for the show, we've got, quote, how's Washington plans to spend money from the new carbon capture law. This was an article originally published in Crosscut, but Stu's going to give us an overview specifically on what's going on with this new carbon cap law. Next, Turkey says its Black Sea natural gas discoveries are worth over $500 billion. I will take a slice of that. Thank you very much. Good for Turkey, some Black Sea offshore stuff. He will dive into what that means for the global energy markets. Next, news: Indonesia, uncontacted tribes being destroyed for electric car batteries. This is an awful story, and Stu will cover what's going on in the race for EVs. We seem to be we seem to be now messing with the uncontracted tribes. That'll lead somewhere good. Next up on the menu, we have nuclear phase out would increase pollution deaths, says study. Interesting. I'm going to be very interested to hear what this study says. It's out of MIT, though, so take that for what it's worth. And then finally, in the news section, battle over taxing the rich abound in liberal California. I mean, they're eating their own over there. It's absolutely incredible. So Stu will dive in what's going on with our friends over in California. He will kick it over to me. I will cover what happened in the crude oil markets today. We saw a nice rally, some good price action. If you're a day trader out there, man, there's a clear action about 6 a.m. Could have made you a lot of money. We currently trade about 81.83. Natural gas looks up at $2.22. Both crude oil and natural gas having a nice little bump for the day. Overall market's not. And then we will let you guys get out of here. But before we kick it over to Stu to kick us off with news, again, check us out. All of the stories you're about to hear are courtesy of the world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. Stu does a great job of curating it every single day to bring you the most pertinent energy news. It's the best spot to stay up to speed on what's going on in the industry. Dashboard.energynewsbeat.com is our combo data news. Get it while you still can. You never know where it might go. I'm out of breath, though, Stu. Where do you want to begin today's show?
Let's start with Washington. How Washington plans to spend money from the new carbon cap law. Michael, this is kind of like me trying to write a headline. It's actually misleading, but I liked it. It's not Washington, D.C., it's Washington State. So when you sit back and take a look, the Climate Commitment Act out of Washington State, the law is expected to generate between 500 million and 1 billion annually in the coming years. Here's the systemic problem this is really bringing up, Michael, and that is once lawmakers get a budget and they get extra money coming in, they're going to spend it. And there's some really important things in here. The new law has gotten a boost since it was signed because of the Federal Inflation Reduction Act included big investments in climate change that included matching federal funds. So here's where come down into another part. We want to make sure that this money is used to tackle climate change because there's many things that are good projects in the state of Washington, but we've made a commitment to Washington's to reduce our carbon pollution. Let's come on down to one other line in here, Michael, and it says, as Washington works towards a green future, we must be mindful of the impacts that these transitions have on our communities. Our farmers are critical contributors to our economy, and they are being unfairly targeted by big oil companies. This is totally wrong. It was always our intention to exempt their fuel from the CCA guidelines, and this legislation affirms our commitment to them as we transform into a cleaner, greener economy. And then he says, as he describes it, as the dark underbelly of the issues that has not yet surfaced, and he's referring to the grid. This article is hugely impacting of what is in actually Washington, D.C., Michael, from the standpoint is A, money comes in, B, they want to spend it on all these other things other than what it's supposed to be for. And then you see the regulations and everything else. So even though this is Washington State, I thought that I was sitting here looking at this and it was Washington, D.C.
You got catfished. I found this interesting. This is like the fourth or fifth paragraph down. In March, the State Department of Ecology sold its first round of credits at an auction, which will take place 4 times a year, raising a total of $300 million. Oh, so because you see what's happening here in this carbon cap and invest program, they're dealing out credits, but what they're doing is they're holding an auction for the credits. That's genius. It's a genius way to make money off incentivizing people to pollute, because the more people that are polluting, the more people need to buy credits, and the more credits you have available to buy, the more money you make. This is going to take place 4 times a year. It's going to be $1 billion. Just to the bottom line. Now, you should be investing that in infrastructure and grid sustainability, but that's not going to go there. But that's a crazy thing to think about, that they just auctioned up. They're going to have these 4 times a year, just boom, clear 300 million, boom, clear 300 million.
You know what? And you're going to find this is just like Colorado. When you and I worked on the Colorado legislation and everything else in helping other oil companies there, it's the same thing. They're going to take a state law. They're going to go, hey, that's a great way to steal money. I mean, tax without representation. And that's exactly what they're going to do.
Bring me back.
Anyway, you heard it here.
1770. Bring us back to 1774, Stu. What do you got next?
Okay. Turkey says its Black Sea natural gas discoveries are worth over 500 billion. This is really huge for the simple fact that this is right next to Club Med. You know, you go right on through there. You're going to see some natural gas pipelines come in, and actually Turkey needs this very, very bad, because their inflation rate, if I remember right, Michael, is 90% right now. They need the revenue. And I think it's great. Turkey needs to be able to become energy independent as well. The Black Sea now have increased to 710 billion cubic meters. That's nuts. That is nuts. So happy for them. And it means a lot to Eastern Europe. Okay, let's go to the next.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have much to say other than this would be very helpful to Europe in a time when they're very reliant on Russian gas.
Oh, you bet. Okay, the next one is really sad, and I'm tired of hypocrisy, either political hypocrisy or energy hypocrisy. Indonesia, uncontacted tribe being destroyed for electric car batteries. You kind of made the mispronunciation sound like you didn't mispronounce it. It sounded like uncontracted tribe. And I think that's almost the same thing. They're uncontracted to get paid for any money of places that they were living on. Nickel mining is set to destroy the vast areas of the forested interior of Hamanera. These forests are inhabited by 300 to 500 uncontacted members of the Honga Manaya tribe. If mining goes ahead as planned, they will not survive the destruction. Where's the hypocrisy? Where's the outrage? Save the whales. Let's save the people. Destruction from the nickel mining, the forest, the mining is illegal under international law, but they're going to do it anyway. So Tesla,
of course, it's partly owned by a French mining company. Gotta love that.
Yeah.
Aren't they protesting over there? I'm not a politics international aficionado. I don't know anybody who is. But something's going on in France. Aren't they rioting?
They are. And the major news is the major news outlets are not covering it. And the reason is because Macron basically told he's in bed with Z now, and he basically was dissing the US and calling us some fairly bad things. Germany also called us some fairly bad things, and it was horrific what they just said today on the German floor of their parliament, saying that our administration is one step short of lying. So our administration is going on. They're rioting because Macron actually is trying to raise the retirement age, but that's only one facet of it. He's also increasing taxes without representation. Bing. So I can't blame him. Hats off to the French people for rioting. So
you heard it here first. Hats off for rioting.
yeah. Okay, let's go to the nuclear phase. And this one helps out a lot of folks as well, too. I'm on a roll today, dude. I don't know why. I must have had 6 espressos today or something, but let me pull this one over.
I only had 4, so you're beating me.
Nuclear phase out would increase pollution deaths. This is very important because, speaking of Germany, Germany has announced today that they are also looking at killing the rest of their nuclear things so they can go more renewable. Michael, didn't they learn anything? Anyway, if the US were to shut down its nuclear power plants, the pollution from coal, gas, and oil would be used to make up the generation shortfall, would result in worsening of air quality that could cause an additional 5,200 pollution-related deaths over a single year. And even more when you consider the amount of bad air in longer term and just getting worse. Michael, we've had the lowest CO2 and pollution in years because we've been moving from coal to natural gas. So I thought this was a great study. In quote, our scenario of removing nuclear power results in compensation by coal, gas, and oil, resulting in increases of PM 2.5 and ozone that lead to an extra 5,200. I've already said that. So anyway, we got to keep our nuclear fleet going. We got to expand it. Yep. And guess what the holdup is, Michael?
Regulation.
Boom. You heard it here second.
Well, I have to say something, Stu, before you move on here. I mean, first off, we had to go to MIT to tell us that if we switch from a coal smokestack, going to a nuclear plant, going from nuclear to coal, you're going to increase pollution deaths. We had to go to MIT. That was hard-earned taxpayer money that was sent to MIT that probably paid for a few grad students. Been in that situation, not at MIT, but somewhere else where the government's paying a really nice fee to get some research put out that, well, that's obvious. I mean, this is just what boggles my mind. We had to go to MIT. We had to tie up the smartest people in the world on the question of whether or not nuclear is better for the environment than coal. I could have saved the government a lot of money and told them, yeah, it probably is.
Great point. And Secretary Granholm in the past week and over the last several months, we know that nuclear is now being approved as far as available for infrastructure dollars and funding. Secretary Granholm did say that they are getting it better. So now they've got documentation from a left-leaning university to go, see, MIT did it. I'm going to follow the science like they have in other things. So they're buying it for a talking point.
Yeah, I'm glad we're wasting the smartest people in the world on figure on telling us this, but I'm glad we spent the resources. I'd like to get cut in next time. You just give me a call, Secretary Granholm, if you need any more of this research done. Whatever you're charging per hour at MIT, I'll do it for half, because I'm sure it's cheaper. We'll do it for half.
We'll do it for half. I like the way you think.
What's next?
Okay, battles over taxing the rich abound in liberal California. I got tickled at this one because, speaking of taxation without representation, you gotta love it. I almost feel like throwing a tea party just because we can. In deeply blue California, there's never a shortage of efforts to raise taxes on the state's wealthiest residents or corporations of expansions of government programs. There's a couple paragraphs in here that I got really, really tickled at. Let's see. It was, voters are virtually certain to face another tax the rich ballot measure next year. The proposal would add a 0.75% surtax on incomes over 5 million to finance pandemic detection and programs.
Oh, nice. Gain of function research. That's nice. Increased taxes for gain of function research. Sweet. And we're going to put California in charge? Even better. Sign me up.
No. And then there's about 3 more things in here. It would have been a major revision to Proposition 13, the 1978 ballot measure to both limit property taxes and make other taxes difficult to impose. That's the critical part, because it's going to open it up for them to tax anything they want at any time. There's also another thing in here saying that it would only be the rich. Biden has been saying that he's only going to tax anybody making more than 400,000. Guess what? Everybody in the entire country is being taxed by his new methodology. So this is the same thing. People are leaving California. I only pray, and I want to put this out there, that they leave their voting there.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, Stu. Unfortunately, they're all moving to Austin, so at least just don't move there.
Real quick, half sec. That poor guy, that was released yesterday, that they may pardon in Texas. He was an Uber driver and defended himself against a.
I heard about that. Didn't he also run a red light to get into the protest? There's some sketchy details around this dude. It wasn't just as cut and dry.
Well, his fare was in a rush. And when he got down there, the gentleman was a non-minority. In fact, he was white, carrying an AK-47. So carrying an AK-47.
This is where there's. Let me just. We got to break this down here, because I was listening to this morning on one of the few. No. This is interesting, Stu, because this is the intersection of open carry and stand your ground law. Think about it. If someone is walking around with an AK-47 openly brandished, tied around your chest, in my opinion, that in and of itself is threatening. Now, yes. The problem, so are you allowed to stand your ground and shoot them? But they're not breaking the law, because you can open carry. It's a tricky situation.
It is. But when you brandish a weapon, holding it in a holster or in a strap is not brandishing. And
he wasn't. He wasn't pointing it at the guy.
He said he pointed it at him. I saw him talk to, and I saw an interview. He pointed it at him. That is brandishing a weapon. Having a weapon on your holster or in a strap is not brandishing.
But we're way off topic, but it is just, so I agree with what you're saying overall. I just think it's a very interesting, and I think there's going to be a lot of people rethinking these stand your ground and open carry laws, because that brings up a very interesting point, Stu. I know you're an expert on this stuff. I'm not going to talk with you about guns when it comes to this is what you used to do. I'm just saying it's an intersection that, like, this is an edge case. I'm a computer programmer. When sometimes you run code, you run it for a week, you run it for a month, you run it for a year, and then all of a sudden one edge case shows up, boom, room error. And you're like, oh, I got to account for that. So I'm not saying this is, but it's a very interesting, the intersection of, I mean, if I just was walking around with a rocket launcher, it's not branded, like, you know what I mean? Like, at what point, you know what I mean? If I just had a sniper over my shoulder, like, at some point, there is, you see what I'm saying, though. I'm not crazy.
No, and I couldn't agree more. But here's the left-wing media last night was saying that because the governor is possibly most likely going to pardon him, they're saying that the governor of Texas is now racist because we're going to pardon a guy for a Black Lives Matter when the guy was white. So
my issue is this, though: a jury of his own peers convicted him.
In Austin, in Texas.
But I mean, that's the American system. I mean, that's my only pushback. I could be persuaded.
One last thing. In Texas, George Soros funded that DA. I call it
the dark fleet. The dark fleet.
I'm sorry. George Soros needs to be thrown out of the country.
No, George Soros is a creep. I'm with you. George Soros is an absolute creep.
So we can talk about anything you want.
I'm good. This is enough of a sidetrack from energy. I was just listening to that, and it's very interesting, and it's a sad situation all around, regardless.
It is, and all people's lives matter.
Yes. You got anything else?
Nope. I'm thoroughly going to get us thrown off YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. Looking at finance, we were actually basically flat on the S&P. We traded up literally where we started. 4140 was the settle for a nice crisp 0.00% increase. So take that to the bank. NASDAQ was down 0.75 percentage point. Oil ran a little bit today. We started the day a little bit below 80.79. 615 rolled around, and we had a nice little day trade price action to the north. 81.46 is what we set out right now. A lot of it has to do with a little bit of a weaker Chinese inflation data, which is better than what we had hoped. China inflation, everyone's dealing with inflation. That's the funny part. I think, we focus so much around what's going on in America, and rightfully so, because the dollar is more of a global currency, but everyone is experiencing inflation right now, even China, who controls their currency at a state level. So a lot of things on that front. We saw the dollar drop a little bit today in response to that, in response to some of the weakness going on in the stock market. What we did see at about 3:15, API came in and said and expected a 1.4 million barrel draw from the crude oil reserves. We saw a little bit of a build. So we'll confirm that tomorrow at 10 a.m. Or as you guys listen to this, at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. We're actually recording this Tuesday night. Newsflash. We're sitting here about 640. So we currently traded 81.47. Overnight, it's going to be interesting. As the markets go and the dollar goes, so will oil prices. Again, if I keep harking back to the recession. Whenever the quote unquote recession comes, Stu will argue that it's here now. It's been here for 6 months. Economists, we know they changed the definition 6 months ago. So we may not technically be in one, but we probably are. But, people feel okay. I just saw a stat today that for the first time, more than 50% of people feel insecure about the financial future. And now I think it's sitting at like 72%. That you start getting, that becomes recession, because a lot of the recessions do people feel like they're in a recession. Because that's really, and that's weird to say, but that's how you quantify a recession is, does everybody you talk to feel like they're in a recession? We're getting there where more and more people are starting to feel like in 2008. I was in middle school and I knew a recession was happening. That's when you're in a recession. When you don't really know what's going on, that's the vibe that's out there. That's my non-technical way of saying, well, what's a recession? You have to agree with me, Stu. There's a difference when people who know nothing about what's going on, it's like when you know a pop culture reference, Stu, that's when you know that pop culture reference has bridge gaps, is when you find out about it. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
I disagree.
Disagree with what? That we're in a recession now? We probably are.
That you think that a recession is by definition when people feel like they're in a recession, because the media and the social media has been not covering it. And the whole thing is all bets are off on that. The only way to get rid of the recession is to fix the energy policies, actually lower the interest rates and fix energy, lower the energy prices. Those two steps are the only things that'll do it.
By the technical definition of a recession, of course we're in a recession, and we're probably going into a quote unquote depression soon. That's what everyone claims going on. That's what you would say. What I'm saying is, when you just talk to people on the street, they're not worried about a recession. They're starting to. That's when I talk about the feel of it. Like when things start crossing into, me and you look at this stuff every day. You've been pounding the desk for a recession for 10 years. But does your neighbor, who maybe works a day job, who's not really invested on a day-to-day, when do they start being like, wow, Stu, man, is it getting tight for you? And then that's when you're like, okay, it's, again, it's not a technical term, but you get what I'm saying. There's the technical definition, which we're there and have crossed the boundary, but then there's the actually feel it. Like for me, I don't feel like we're in a recession. So that's what I'm saying. Like we might technically be in a recession, but I don't feel like it. And that's just my anecdotal proof. But that's when I say that there's not a feeling, but it can be not, you get what I'm saying.
I do, but I don't agree.
I like it though. I like it. Let's move to natural gas though. We're up to $2.22. Again, we were drawn by a little bit of warmer weather that we saw roll in throughout the Midwest, which is great. It's actually a gorgeous day here in Dallas. I don't know how it is up where you are, Stu. It's a good day.
Abilene. It's a good day.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're not at the secret cabin anymore. We're both in the great state of Texas. But Midwest is seeing some great weather. We will get natural gas stocks on Thursday. We should see a slight draw, even though last year we did see a little bit of the build. So that could bode well for prices. Again, have we found the floor at $2? Hopefully, but as we move into summer, it's going to be interesting as we move to injection season when we roll over in some of those seasonal requests. There's nothing really on the M&A market or finance squad to look at. I do see that new executive over at Northern Oil and Gas. They've now got a CTO. I think that's interesting. I like that. Tech guy background. Love me a little oil and gas throwing in a CTO. But besides that, Stu, there ain't much. Kind of slow. Everyone's just talking about Exxon Pioneer. Everyone's talking about it. And okay, if that deal's getting to the point where it's getting floated, what other deals are being talked about that aren't getting floated? And there's got to be some. And I'm sure you're hearing rumors. I'm hearing rumors. We're not a news site though.
Nor investment.
Yeah, why would we? We're not a news site. We don't have a website that gives out news where you can come and see news. Like, don't go to energynewsbeat.com for all your latest and greatest breaking news, because we're done with the episode. We're going to let you guys get out of here. We appreciate you checking us out. World's greatest podcast, Energy Newsbeat Daily Stand Up for Stuart Turley. I'm Michael Tanner. We'll see you guys tomorrow, folks.